So what we want to do tonight, everybody's got to have a starting point where you can write business, right? You got to get on the board, you got to go through some apps, you got to hear the objections that people say. And when you're calling those ethos leads, what's great about them is every single person has some kind of an excuse. So I just wanted to have you on to really talk about where you heard about the ethos leads, cover some of the objections, how you call people. I'm sure people are going to want your script. When you're on the team dial so they can go on and listen to you. And we got 41 people on the call tonight, so everybody turned out to hear you. So no pressure, buddy.
Thanks, Neal. Thanks. I want to throw it out there too. Danny's been hustling with us as well. It's usually been me, Danny, and Preston on there grinding away at these ethos leads. Danny's bound to hit one of them for sure. He's working just as hard as us.
Amen.
But it all started with me just trying to find something. As you guys know, I'm also fairly new, but you couldn't. It's as you learn, you'll see that the IUL leads are very. Okay, perfect. You guys can hear me good now. You're good?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. I'll start all over just to keep it simple here. So the IUL obviously in this group is our bread and butter. We like to be able to write IULs, but as a new agent, it's very hard to be able to find the resources to be able to start buying IUL leads, right? I mean, they're anywhere between $30 to $40. They could get actually very expensive. So I started looking online to different resources. FFL has a lot of great videos on YouTube, and they post a lot of different stuff. I look up Hall of Fame producers all the time on YouTube to be able to see what they're doing, see what their team's doing, see just different things to be able to try to explore and see what's going on. And I stumbled upon a video of Gary Michaels. Not sure if anybody knows who Gary Michaels is. Hall of Fame producer. And he mentioned in the video that 80% of his business is based off of Ethos Abandon cart leads. So when he said that, that kind of blew my mind. I said, what? He's writing. And I looked him up, and he's writing currently 91,000 in life so far this year to date. And he has 115,000 in IUL business. So I went ahead, looked up Ethos Abandon cart leads, and they're currently between $7 and $8. And there's always some kind of coupon code on there. And currently there's one right now that'll expire in 2 days, and you could get those for about $5 a piece. So that kind of piqued my interest. I started working them about a week and a half or so. Me and Danny started working them about a week and a half or so. I started off with 25. I said, let's see what happens. I'll buy 25. They're on sale. Why not? Was able to close one. So I said, okay, let me buy 25 more. Was able to sell one as well. So I said, okay, I'm going to go all in. I bought about 200 now. So now I'm, working with 200. I have a few very good potential clients that I have appointments with in these next few days. So looking to be able to close those. But what really caught my attention with these Ethos Abandoned cart leads is I'm having a lot of conversations. People are actually picking up the phone. They're actually interested in some form or shape of life insurance. They just don't know what they want, or they either got on the website and they couldn't figure it out. The ethos was a little too complicated for them, or no one called them back, or for whatever reason. So we're having actually good conversations. People are picking up and they're like, yeah, I do remember doing that. And the most common objection is usually, I already got it done. I don't remember filling that out, supposedly, right? Or, yeah, I don't want to work with Ethos. It was too complicated. I hate Ethos. Those are usually typically the most common ones we're getting. But it really intrigued me because the age groups of these leads are anywhere between 30 years old and 60 years old. So you could see that's a pretty big group there that you can sell anything to. Final expense, mortgage protection, or even an IUL.
Can you
And mass
can
majority
you
of
say
these
again
people
what
don't.
you say with when you call those leads? What you say again? I missed that. If
Oh,
you
I
don't
haven't
mind.
I haven't said yet. I'll dive into the script
Oh,
here in a
okay. I
bit.
thought you said it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
No,
oh, I missed it. Oh,
not yet, not yet.
thank
No,
you.
I'll definitely dive in though to the introduction, and because there's definitely me and Danny have really been testing out what works, what doesn't, because you definitely do have to try to narrow it down with this specific lead. The way you approach an age lead is totally different how you would approach a fresh lead. We all know that,
And
definitely.
also for those who jumped on late, what we're talking about during primetime TV, Ethos runs TV ads, and they're all over social media. People go to those ads, they go to buy life insurance, it's too complicated, or for whatever reason, they put it in their cart, but they don't buy it. So it's called an abandoned cart lead. So what happens, Ethos flips it to FFL. We'll show everybody where you can get them by the time we're done. And the goal here is you'll know about the leads, you'll know where to get them, you'll have a script, you'll know what the objections are, and we all move forward and get on the board in June. That's kind of the whole point. So
That's what kind of really excited me about this lead, is just that the age group is just so broad. So it's kind of like, hey, I could sell you guys anything. And a lot of these people don't even know what an IUL is. So if they're, within that age range and they're in good health, it's definitely pitching them the IUL right away. I started off by buying all the ones locally near my area. That's what I felt comfortable with, just because of obviously the phone number, the time zone. And I said, you know what? Worst case scenario, I'll tell these people I'll go to their house. I don't care. And I actually did. The second policy I wrote was a guy that lived 20 minutes from my house. And he's like, and I said, hey, sir, we can do the appointment over the phone, or I'll do it in person. And he said, you know what? I feel more comfortable in person. And I said, okay. And I went on a weekend and I went to his house and I sold him a policy. That was my first in-home ever. I've never done that. It was a little weird, but we got it done. You know what? Whatever. I'm going to give this guy a policy. He needs help. Let's do it. So that's how I started out first. It worked out really good. So now I was able to buy a few different, more in different states and stuff like that. But the point of this is that these leads are actually working. They're definitely working. Preston called me the other day. I told him what I was doing, and he went and bought 30, and he's I think sold 3 or 4, I think, from those leads. And at $5, that's a tremendous ROI that he got. So I'll definitely go into that. So I'll just show you guys really quick. I'll share my screen just to show you guys where you guys can go buy those. It's in the lead center. Can you guys see my screen?
yes.
Okay. So it's just in the lead center, and then you'll go here, and then you'll go hit life, and then it's always internet, and then lead partners. The Ethos has their own. So you go to lead partners,
wow.
and you just hit Ethos, and then you could pick your state, whatever state you're licensed in. So you just go ahead and here, I'll hit California. Now there's 2 different kinds. There's Ethos Fresh Abandoned Cart, and then there's Ethos Aged Abandoned Cart. Obviously, huge price difference, $18, $8. I didn't buy the Ethos Fresh Abandoned Cart leads because I was just like, well, $18, let me see what I can do with the $8 ones. And honestly, I don't think there's a slight difference. The difference is the first one that's $18, they've filled the form out in 30 days or less. The
Yeah.
Ethos Aged Abandon is going to be 45 days or more.
Well, and here's the cool thing. There's 735 that no one has purchased. On the 30th day, those roll into the 31-day window. So why, just wait till they roll is my
Exactly. Because I'll tell you right now, 5 days ago, I bought all the old ones here in California. So there was 0, and now there's 191. So there's constantly always one. And I honestly don't see the point in buying the fresh ones. I mean, these people have the intent. They filled out the form. What's good about these leads too is that it even gives you their full address. So you can kind of go in and talk about that. I use that to my advantage in the script as well, just to kind of build that credibility. So I'll get into a little bit of the script. Let me just pull it up here. But the most common objections, like I said, is definitely I've already gotten taken care of, or I already have life insurance, or I don't want to work with Ethos just because they had a bad taste in their mouth. They had a bad experience. But before I even go into the script, though, if nobody knows who Jeremy Minor is, me and Danny are big advocates for Jeremy Minor, and he's helped a lot. He has this book. It's called the Black Book, and it says NEPQ, which stands for Neuro Emotional Persuasion Questioning. If nobody has this book, I'll save you the money. Don't buy it. I'll put my email in the chat, and I'll send you the digital copy, PDF version. And it's really good with handling objections, how to be able to pull out the pain points and why people need coverage and stuff. He's really good at what he does. Danny does his voice very well too. So I'll get into the script here. Let me just pull it up. Or Danny, I'll use Danny.
Danny, do the voice. I want to hear the voice.
Okay, Danny knows the script fairly well, so I'll be the client. Danny's really good at the voice.
I haven't sold one, so clearly I'm not.
Come on, he's just had some bad luck with some tough ones. All right, go ahead, Danny.
I don't even have my script in front of me. Sorry, I wasn't prepared.
Okay,
Well,
no
why don't-
worries. All right,
Felipe,
so-
why don't you call him?
yeah, go ahead. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hi, is this Danny?
Yes.
Hi, Danny. My name is Felipe. I'm reaching out regarding to the coverage you submitted about 30 days ago. Are you still on 1234 Main Street?
Yeah. Who is this
Okay,
again?
great. What was that?
Who is this again?
This is Felipe. Felipe. I'm the local
And-
underwriter here in your state in California.
Okay.
Okay, and this was for the request for coverage that you submitted on the Ethos website, which is a quoting tool for life insurance. Do you remember doing that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. So when you were on there, what ended up happening? Were you looking for coverage for yourself or for a loved one? Or did you get sticker shock? Was the price too high? What ended up happening?
I hate you guys, man. I hate Ethos. You can
Oh,
take me
yeah.
off your list.
No, I get that a lot. No worries. I don't work directly for Ethos. I'm an independent agent here in California. So I have access to 30 different carriers to be able to help you, to be able to find something that's affordable and fits your needs and your budget.
Mm.
So what kind of coverage were you looking for?
Oh, yeah, I guess I was looking for term.
Okay, so that's pretty much the introduction.
Yeah.
You just go in there, you let them know that they filled it out a few days ago. I always say 30 days just because to kind of let them know it was a while ago. Give them their address so they know you're just not some random person calling them. Give them your address. You still at that address? Yeah, and then they're kind of like, well, what's it about? Just kind of like Danny said. And I said, Ethos is a website. It's a quoting tool for life insurance. Then they're kind of like, oh, okay. And then that was actually really smooth by Danny. I mean, there's people that are a lot more obviously rude than that. And they're just kind of like, no, not interested, or I already got that taken care of. And there's just different ways to be able to overcome those objections. The main thing that I always like to be able to do that I learned from the book was that there's 4 keys you always need to be able to do to take away. Obviously, people come up to you and they're, already have their guard up. So you want to ask a disarming question. So, if they say, hey, I already got it taken care of, I already have life insurance. Oh, great. Can I ask what kind of coverage you currently have in place? So then they'll be like, oh, okay, I have 500,000, I'm paying $100 a month. So then I'll hit them with okay, so you were looking for temporary insurance, not permanent insurance. And then that kind of raised their eyebrows. Well, what do you mean? Well, you're 62 years young and you're paying $150 for 500,000 a month, for 500,000 in coverage. Obviously, that's, in my mind, I already know that's a term policy because they're in their 60s and they're paying a low premium for a high amount of coverage. Oh, I thought this was permanent. I said, well, no, this is probably going to expire in a few years, depending on which type of policy you got. And they're like, well, no, that's not what I wanted. I wanted something to last forever. And then we kind of just jump into maybe a final expense policy to be able to help them once their term policy does expire. The next thing I like to be able to do is called a problem awareness, to be able to find some kind of gap or risk that they have inside to be able to do that. So once they do tell me how much coverage they have, I'll be like, okay, so does that coverage still meet all your needs today? For example, if something unexpected happened, would it fully cover the mortgage, final expense, or all the bills without your family having to worry about it? So that kind of starts to bring out some kind of awareness. And then you hit them with the third key, which is a consequence question. What would happen if for some reason the coverage wasn't enough, or if something unexpected came up and that wasn't included in your policy that you currently have? How would that be able to affect your family financially? And then the fourth and last key is obviously the solution awareness, which would be the transition into trying to get them to continue talking to them and you introduce them to the sale. So if there's a way for me to supplement or improve your current coverage to make sure everything is fully protected, would you be open to looking at that? And then they kind of just go into, well, yeah, okay, great. That's pretty much how you would handle the objection of, I already got it taken care of, or I already have life insurance, which is the most common objection you're going to get when you're calling these Ethos Abandon cart leads.
Did they really take care of it, or are they just telling you that to blow you off and get rid of you?
I would say it's always 50-50 because when I tell them what kind of coverage they got or what, they're like, oh, I don't remember, or I don't have the policy in front of me. So it's always kind of 50-50. I mean, you can keep going and going, but at some point you draw the line and they either just hang up. But I've noticed for every 10 people I actually get on the phone and talk to, I'll get 1 or 2 appointments with people actually like, yeah, I was interested. I just didn't understand how the Ethos platform worked. I didn't understand it, but I am still interested. So it's like, okay, great. You have time now, or would you like to schedule an appointment? And then we schedule an appointment and then go from there.
Dang. Now you had told me something else that you do, which is you say something about when they say I already took care of it, you say perfect. That's why I'm calling. You don't want people calling you, something like that.
Oh yeah. They'll be like, I already got it taken care of. Okay, great. Let me update your file here just so I can have people to stop calling you. And then what kind of coverage did you get? Or which carrier did you end up going with? And then that kind of lets me know and gears me towards what I'm going to be able to tell them next after that.
And that
Because
really
they do want to have people stop calling them. So they're like, let me update your file here so I can have people stop, so you can stop getting these phone calls. What kind of coverage did you get? And then that kind of opens the floodgates to be able to either help them further add on coverage or get them a better rate.
That's awesome. And I love that. It disarms them. Perfect. So that's why I'm calling. So I want to make notes in the computer so people quit calling you. So what kind of coverage? Beautiful. Now you did that with somebody you were telling me about, and it turned out that they had a graded policy. Tell us about that.
It was worse than graded. It was an accidental policy. So it was a 67-year-old woman, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I already got that taken care of." And I said, "Okay, no worries. Let me update your file here so you can stop getting these calls. What kind of coverage do you have?" She said, "Oh, I have 250,000." And I said, "Okay, great. How much are they making you pay for that?" And she was like, "Oh, about 150." And I said, "Okay, great." I said, so then I went into my spiel. Okay, well, that sounds like temporary insurance. I'm sure you were looking for permanent insurance. And we started talking more and more about it. And she actually pulled up her policy while we're on the phone. And I said, read to me on the top on what it says. Or would you like to email me a copy so I can review it to make sure you're in the right position? And she emailed it to me, and it was actually an accidental policy. And I told her, ma'am, you do not have full coverage if you were to not wake up tomorrow. You have what's called an accidental policy. So you have to die in an accident in order for this to get paid out. And she was like blown away about it. She almost wanted to start crying on the phone because she said, my son has her son has special needs, and she's like, I wanted to be able to leave this money behind to him.
Mm.
And we went further and further into it, and I actually have a meeting with her this weekend to be able to probably get her some type of coverage. And that was all because she did fill out something on Ethos, thought she had actual coverage, and we're able to still be able to help her out. If I would have just told her, okay, great, you got to take care of, and then hung up on to the next one, she would have never been able to get some kind of permanent coverage in place. So you can't always just give up on the first objection. I try to at least go 2 or 3 in before it's like, okay, let's move on. You're definitely not interested.
So what I'm
Awesome.
hearing, you're really digging in to try and understand the kind of insurance they have, make sure it's not accidental,
Yeah,
which a lot of
definitely.
people sell, and also whether it's day one coverage, like that
Exactly.
one veteran that we listened to you do.
Yeah, exactly.
He had graded policy, and by digging in, you figured out that it was graded.
Yeah.
How'd you convince him that it was graded and get him to believe you?
I'm trying to remember that call, but he kept digging deep on, I already have coverage. And I said, well, is it day one coverage? And he didn't understand the concept. And he actually said, I don't qualify for day one coverage. That's what it was. And I said, okay, you do understand you're going to wait 2 years. God forbid you don't wake up in the 24 months or less. You're only going to get the return of premium plus a percentage. You're not going to get the actual policy that you have. And he said, yeah, I get that, but I'm not going to qualify for first day coverage, day one coverage. And I said, well, doesn't hurt to try. and let's try to get you coverage. I'm sure I can get you day one coverage. And he said, okay, it doesn't hurt to do a quick 5-minute application. We run him through Americo, and he instantly got approved with day one coverage, and he couldn't believe it. He called me, actually, funny story. He called me a week later at 5 a.m. Luckily, I work graveyard shift, but he called me at 5 a.m. and he said, Felipe, I just got the policy in last night, and I want to thank you because I actually looked at it and it does say day one coverage. I believe you now. So not till he had it actually in his hands, he was so excited. He called me at 5 a.m.
That's awesome.
And he
That's so
said, you know what?
awesome.
Yeah. And he said, you know what? Can I get another policy? And I said, of course. You let me know when you're ready. You can always add on more later on.
Can I ask a question, guys?
Yes.
I don't know what graded insurance is. I haven't heard that term before. Can you explain that a little bit more? I know you kind of went into it a little bit about when it would start, but I've never heard that term before.
Yeah. Neal, did you want to cover that?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Felipe.
so graded would just be the 2-year waiting period. So typically it's when they really have serious health issues, like for example, a previous cancer patient, obviously from 3 years or more, and they can't get actual day one coverage. They put them in a 2-year waiting period. So that's going to have them only pay in monthly. If they're paying, example, $10 a month, they'll have to pay that the first 2 years. If they die within the first 2 years, then they get the premiums all back plus a percentage. If they die on
Thank
month
you. I've
20,
never heard that.
yeah, if they die on month 25, then the full amount of their policy will actually get paid out.
Yeah, this is a final expense whole life concept. So in other words,
Okay.
this guy was a military veteran and his daughter bought him the policy. And just so you understand, all like Mutual Omaha direct mailers, all Colonial Penn, most of the AARP stuff, they mail them out to people and they think they have coverage. Like if something happens to them the day after they get the policy, the full 30,000 is going to be paid. That is not how it works. It's sight unseen, and most of these are graded. So what was fascinating about that phone call is his daughter bought the policy. Of course, she didn't know either. So
Yeah,
Our
her assumption, I even had to email her back and forth before we even could submit the policy because she's like, there's no way she was very adamant. There's no way you're going to get my dad day one coverage. And I said, yes, I can. I said, I already have a pre-approval through a company. I just need the okay because he already gave me banking information to be able to submit it and for you guys to actually get the policy in the mail. And she was like, okay, let's do it.
honestly, isn't that the greatest feeling in the world when you do that?
Yeah, it was good.
I learned about this one time. I was making this call, and this young guy, he's a military guy. He just got back. He's in his mid-30s, and he wanted to meet just to get an explanation because his dad, who was perfectly healthy, bought a Mutual Omaha direct mail and didn't know it was graded and stepped in a hole, jarred his back. It turned into a cancer thing and he died. And the family was stunned when he only got his premiums that he paid in plus 10%. And I had to sit and explain the difference between day one coverage and a graded policy. And if you've been in the business for a while, Francis, I know you've run into it and everybody else has. It's very rewarding when you can educate somebody like you did, Felipe.
No, yeah, it was really good. That was actually my first time actually doing that. And you're right, it does feel good.
Yeah.
Neal, not to confuse this subject more, graded, what's the difference between a policy that gives you over 2 years, gives you 50% back or gives you 50% coverage after year one versus the ones that don't give you anything if you don't make it to?
It's grading. It's just a different level. Different companies choose to do different programs, but really with what we're dealing with the only reason that we're talking about this is because if we're working with somebody and they're not healthy enough to get an IUL, then we've got to pivot somewhere to try and get them something. And so now we're in the whole life arena. For the sake of us, it's either Americo and we get them day one coverage, or it's Corebridge where we get them a graded policy, because that Corebridge grading, they actually have two different levels of grading. And we went through some of that on the carrier stuff. Maybe we didn't, but then there are other companies out there, Ted, that they'll do various levels of grading, but it's not worth the time it takes to go through all that. So I think that's American Amicable, maybe, but
Hey,
can't
Neal,
remember who it is.
can I say something right quick?
Yeah, Bernard, go ahead.
When I was here before, it was AIG.
Yeah,
And
they
I
changed
sold-
the name.
Yeah, I sold a policy to a guy, and of course, he had all kinds of health issues. Within, I think it was something like 16 months, he started to really go down. But make a long story short, he was like 1 day away from getting paid from 2 years, and they took him off of life support. And so he only got his premium back and the percentage. And that really shook me up, kind of.
Oh man,
Yeah, the family just took him off of life support. And
that cost them a lot of money.
yeah, it cost him a lot of money. So
Dang.
made me think I'm going to try harder, like Felipe said, and probe and ask those questions and take care of the people. It's good stuff. Thank you.
You bet. Well, it is. We're finding our own opportunities by asking questions. Felipe, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So let's so if there's anything else that you want to talk about, let's do that. And then when you're done, we're going to just open it up to questions.
Yeah, I'm open to questions, but I just think these leads are really good, and they're very, for a new agent or anyone that just wants to get in and be able to do the at bats and just talk to several people. This is going to be the best way and the most affordable way. $5 a lead, you can't beat that, and you're going to actually have conversations. Definitely, I can guarantee it. If they're going to be good conversations, I can't guarantee it, but that's going to be up to you.
So the way you get to these leads, you got to go through your gateway, and then you go to the lead center. Maybe you can just show them, because I think you were right in the lead center already. So everybody that is contracted should have access to the gateway, and that's the starting point. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, here, and then just go to lead center on gateway.
Now, somebody told me, that if it's the first time you've ordered, they said, Don Fisher, did you tell me this, that the first time you order, you get a 30% discount? 20%.
That's correct, Neal.
Yeah. So if you guys have never ordered through Gateway before, 30% is amazing. That takes those things down from 8. Let's see, they're 70% of the value. 8 times 0.70, $5.60.
And what you guys could also do, if you see down here at the bottom left, you guys want to pair up with another agent on the call, refer each other to go buy some of these, and you'll get $50 credit.
Nice.
So it says right here, if you refer an agent to earn $50 in lead center cash. So
Beautiful. So we know where to go to get those. There was a comment that Stephen put in the comments, and he said, scary scenario. And Stephen, you know this, part of what we do when we're having conversations is, to get somewhat into the details of what it's going to look like if you don't have life insurance and you pass away. And it's scary stuff, but it's got to be real, because you've got to connect with them on what it really entails. If you've ever been through it, how lousy of a situation it can be. But
yeah, I've encountered similar scenarios in different companies where they got to wait the 2 years, or I've seen people sitting with accident policies as well, thinking they got the mortgage covered and everything else, and in reality, it was a 2-bit accident policy.
Yeah, a 2-bit.
In the scary scenario.
I was working with a 56-year-old truck driver, and I was sitting at his kitchen table, and he goes, Neal, I looked and I've already got this covered. And I said, well, what do you have? He goes, I got 150 grand in coverage. And I said, okay, you're 56. And how much are you paying? And he said, like $49 a month. Well, there's a huge red flag because if you've ever priced out life insurance, you know that a 56-year-old to get 150,000 in whole life, he said, for 48 or $49. I'm like, brother, I hate to tell you, but that's accidental death insurance. And people will sell accidental death policies to your clients just to ring the register and move on. They don't care about the client. They don't tell the client. They just, oh, you're covered, and boom, they move on. And our job is to kind of sift through the BS that maybe some other agents have laid on our clients and dig in and try and figure it out.
I wanted to add too on that video I saw with Gary Michaels. He says that since he's been doing these, he also's come across a lot of high premiums as well. He writes a lot of IULs with these leads, and he's come across millionaires, sometimes even billionaires. Because if you just look up or Google life insurance, Ethos is going to come up one way or another. It's going to come up, and they go in there and they put their information down. So I haven't obviously stumbled across that. I've only done this for about 10 days or so, but I'm definitely looking forward to writing some high ticket, like Gary Michaels for sure.
No, it was a little rough. You know, I have a couple of people that, you know, say they're interested, but you know, the one good thing about the Ethos, you know, I was thinking about it, you know, today, Felipe told me this morning that he was going to be talking about this stuff, and I was thinking about it. And, you know, for somebody like, for example, like Francis, you know, doing, you know, so much IUL business, might not make the most sense because, you know, it is kind of like a gamble. But for somebody who's new, one of the things that I think Preston would have probably talked about, and one of the things that I'm kind of leaning into, is being able to take and really understand their situation and see how to pivot into an IUL. So for example, like I had a woman who was like 31 years old and she wanted to have life insurance. And she said, you know, I want like $500,000 life insurance. And I said, oh, well, why do you want $500,000? Like, well, how'd you come up with that number? And she's like, oh, just arbitrarily. She just wanted to put, you know, make sure that her family had some and, you know, paid off her college debt. And she had no wife. I mean, she had no husband. She had no kids. And I started talking to her, and the more I realized it, I'm like, you know, have you ever thought about an IUL? And she's like, what's that? And then I started explaining it to her. And then, of course, she's like, well, I need to do some research. And I said, no. I am the research. So, you know, that's one of those things where you can try to take those $5 leads and maximize them as much as possible. So, you know, Preston is a good example of that. He's taken one and turned it into an IUL. And there's a lot of them. And a lot of people, even some of the guys who talked about H leads, turn those into IUL sales. So as a newbie, I wish I would have started with some of these, because it kind of gets you used to, you know, being quick on your feet, really kind of understanding, you know, the dynamic of what's going on, asking like really good questions. And to be honest, I record myself sometimes and I'm like, I realize I have closer's breath, or what do they call it, commission breath, on some of these calls, because I'm trying to speed through it. And the calls where I'm like basically like, I don't even want you to buy, go really well. And the calls where I'm like, I want you to buy, go terribly. So what I've learned through all this was like, take your time, try to talk them down, because most times, one is buyers are liars. They all know exactly what you're calling about. And then second, they're always shooting for way more than they need. I talked to a guy yesterday, and this was an Ethos lead. I said, hey man, how's it going? You know, we got on the first call. My pitch is a little bit different. I'm like, hey, you know, it's just Edgar. I apologize. I'm sure you've gotten a ton of calls about this, and I'm just updating my records here. So, you know, it looks like about 30 days ago you had submitted a request for coverage, and after 30 days it gets kicked over to a local underwriter such as myself. So, you know, was it the coverage, or was it too expensive? And the guy was like, yeah, it was just like too expensive. Banner quoted me this. And I said, oh, okay, yeah, no, they're a good company. Like, you know, what did they quote you? And so we kind of get into it from there. I had another woman, and Felipe was the one who told me about the temporary thing, and I was talking to her, and she said, "Yeah, no, we're good, we're covered." And I said, "Oh, okay, amazing. I'm just updating my records here. I got you at this street. I'm going to take you off my list." And so, wait, where did you end up getting insurance from? And she's like, "Oh, it's through my husband's work." And I said, "Oh, um, oh, interesting. Okay, so, oh, so you're okay with the temporary insurance?" And she's like, "What?" She's like, "Wait, what? In temporary?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, you know." And she's like, "Well, no, he just got this job." And I said, "Oh, okay. So do you know that if it goes with him when he leaves?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know." And I'm like, "Yeah, you should probably talk to him about that. Because what happens if he, God forbid, gets fired or finds another job and he doesn't have the same perks? Like, what do you do then?" And she's like, "Oh, I didn't even think about that." I'm like, you know, I can't control this, but you know, policies change every single year. Prices go up. Just a let alone on your age. We haven't even talked about health yet. And she's like, "Oh man, so I should really talk to him." And I was like, so she, all of a sudden, like now we have a call like next week with her husband to kind of see kind of where that is. But I'm going to talk to him and say, you guys are both young. You don't have kids. Do you ever think about an IUL, in place of this, or maybe to supplement, and start getting into those conversations. So I think for $5 a bat, you can't beat it. You can't beat
Really?
it.
Awesome. Any questions anybody has? We have about 5 minutes here. Just unmute yourself and shout them out.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nisi, and I have a question for Felipe.
Yeah, for sure. How you doing?
Hi, Felipe. I was just curious, and I want to know, how do you handle resistance or oppositions coming from family members? You know how they always say, "I'll get back to you when I'm ready," or stuff like that, or "I'll call you when I get ready."
Yeah, definitely. So I'll just tell them. So are you okay with typically when they're obviously they're looking for coverage, right? They want to be able to protect something. So if you already know the why, so for example, they're saying, "Oh, well, I really want to make sure my house is protected." So they're like, "So okay, so while you're thinking about that, are you okay from now until you need to think about it to be able to take the risk of you not being able to protect your home if God forbid you don't wake up tomorrow?" So it kind of just makes them think like, "Well, maybe I shouldn't wait about this," because you already know their pain point. If they're giving you that objection, it's towards the end of you trying to close them.
Mm.
So I would say you already know the pain point. So just use whatever pain point that they gave you earlier in the call to just use it against them. That's pretty much how you could try to overcome that.
And I'm guilty of this too. So like that will happen because you haven't built that trust and that bridge good enough during the initial part of the call. So that rejection happens because me, for example, like I try to like sometimes I'm like speeding through it and I haven't asked those probing questions where I'm like, "Hey, um, why do you need coverage? Like, what does it look like? Like, if something, God forbid, something were to happen to you, like, who's going down to the funeral home and taking care of your, last wishes? Like, asking these questions that are serious questions so that they can understand the importance of what we're trying to do. But usually that comes because it hasn't been established because you're talking to somebody on the phone, and whether it's an IUL or whether it's final expense or term, it's like you want to try to build as much trust and ask as many questions as you can. And listen, I'm the first one. I'm on the calls and I'm like just talking and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Danny, shut up. Like, let him talk. So,
And the
yeah.
hard thing about life insurance is you got to be prepared to ask questions. And inside you're going, you are such an a-hole. But you got to be able to ask them. So who in your family do you have kids? You have 3 kids. Okay, so who's in a position to pay for, the 15, 20,000 it's going to cost to take care of your final expenses? Well, no one has that kind of money. Well, so why are you willing to lay that financial burden on them? Oh, and on top of it, I don't even know if you can get covered. We got to put in a request for coverage to find out. So this is just the preliminary stage where you want to talk about price. I really want to talk about whether we can get you covered. So it's just a different paradigm, but sometimes, you just have to, I mean, I hate doing that, but it's just the way our business works. You got to ask tough questions. who was that one guy would say when you ask those tough questions, you need to smile. So when they hit you in the mouth, they just split your lip. They don't knock your teeth out. Great
I,
question. Does that help, Nisi?
It really does. I have one for you.
Yes,
Neal.
ma'am.
Uh, how do you feel about those credit union life insurance policies that they offer their members?
Yeah, MJ, I think Truist, we have one of those, don't we? Like a,
They're all, you got to read the fine print on those. They're all what Neal, you were talking about earlier. They mail them out to all of their members, and you read the fine print. They are adjustable renewable, meaning they'll get to a certain point and then they say level, but it's level for their age bracket, and then they raise that age bracket when they're about 75, and it goes from $40 a month to $500 a month. And they're graded. That is that 2-year window where they offer what Neal talked about earlier, limited coverage, meaning you just get your premium plus 10% back. So you've got to flip that thing over and read the very fine print.
And oftentimes, Mary Jo, when you hit a certain age, typically 70, they'll cut the actual coverage in half. They won't cut. If you've got a 400,000 that goes to 200,000, your premium gets adjusted, but again, it goes up for being 70 as well. So
yeah, they have to call the company and ask them, am I covered to 121 for $500,000 for $14 a month? They have to call the company and ask them specifically what the terms are, because the people they genuinely, unfortunately, Nisi, what people think they're buying is not what they're getting. And that's where our job comes in, to educate them, say, congratulations, you got coverage. Now you have to find out exactly what you have and what the limitations are. And you got to coach them to call that company and ask those hard questions. And they get so mad, they call you right back and say, I'm so mad. What do you got? And you're they do. And you just have to know you're right, that they literally don't have what they think they bought.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, MJ. Dr. Palmer, you have your hand up. And then we'll finish this, and then we want to cut it off because we're right at the 1 hour time limit. So there you go. Yes, sir.
Hey, Neal. Hey, Felipe. Great value in this. You helped me out a lot tonight. And you really helped me out because I'm really in my own head about the leads. And you mentioned something earlier in the call about the emphasis. Instead of the fresh leads, go to the age leads. And, I try and go with, like Jane Euphemia says, a lead is a lead is a lead. But, if you could really revisit that and highlight why the emphasis on the age leads versus the fresh ones that burn your money up real quick. And yeah, it gets a little tight when you see your money burned up. Could you please revisit and speak on that?
Definitely.
Go ahead, Felipe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a huge price point, right? $18, $7, and it's literally 30 days or less, and then 45 days or more. I feel like if they were on the website, if you could just get them to remember them going on the website, they were looking for that coverage. I don't care if they did it a week ago or 2 months ago. If they still need that coverage, they're going to need it. And I'm trying to be able to get the most bang for my buck, right? And especially if they're on a coupon code, $5, you really can't beat that. I don't think the lead itself, if I spend $18, I'm going to be able to sell them just the same as if they were $5, right? If they're past the 45 days, if you can just get them to remember that they filled out that form, it's going to be money regardless.
Yeah, Danny.
So I was going to say, Dr. Prez, is it Dr. Prez or Dr. Palmer?
Dr. Palmer, first name's Prez, but either way, just pull up. Go ahead.
So, I think, I was watching somewhere, we were learning about, cost per acquisition, right? And again, we're talking about like final expense and term. We're not talking about IULs. IUL is a completely different, animal. And, this is kind of like supplemental to what, we're doing in terms of like, trying to make sure that we can sell as many, IULs as possible and put people in the right place for retirement and all those other things. But, when you think about just logistically or like logically, like, the at bats you get for an aged lead, it just, you can't beat it. Just from a math standpoint, you might as well just go try to get as many at bats, because a lot of these people, started off, they had good intentions. And the majority of people that I speak to, and I'm sure Felipe can attest to this, is, oh yeah, I'll say something like, hey, was the coverage too high, or did life just take you away? And a lot of people are like, yeah, I just got busy, and you know what I mean? And so I feel way better calling those aged leads, knowing that I'm like, okay, that was $5. That sucks. That was $5. That sucks. And so I burned through a lot of them, but I'm okay with that compared to burning through 18 or $40, IUL leads. So in terms of supplemental, it's great. And so I would, if I had to do it all over again, start all over, I would just buy all Ethos for like the first couple of months and cut my chops with those.
Yeah, because this is a national ad campaign, television that they have.
Yeah.
We're all looking for high intent leads. And so their intent was as high as you can get. They went to the site, they started to buy the product, and then something happened and they didn't buy it. So for me, just calling second chance leads that are the people have gotten 6 calls before you, or these where in a lot of cases, Felipe, you say, hey, I'm the agent that was assigned to follow up with you. I'm an independent broker. It's just a better talk track in my view. Than just a generalized, because those leads that are second chance leads are probably sold to 5 different companies